Hello and welcome to the news at 7 tonight. As violence against teachers in Aberdeen schools remains prevalent despite an action plan to reduce it, we'll examine the scale of the issue nationwide.
It's really bad these days. I am really struggling with it now because I have done it for too many years.
We'll hear from the boss of Scotland's biggest teaching union about this. Also tonight, is Scotland facing an energy emergency? New figures suggest that the average Scottish household saw a rise of more than £2,200 in their energy costs in just 4 years. We'll investigate the problem and potential solutions. Of course, we will see how the sport is looking today with Jane. What's coming up tonight, Jane?
Well, there were more twists and turns in the Premiership title race over the weekend. Who's coming out on top? We get the thoughts of some former players.
Plus, why BAFTA joy for a film inspired by a bordersman Tourette's journey has turned into an international controversy. Hello, I'm Amy Irons and welcome to the News at 7. It's been an issue in schools right across Scotland, but it seems it's not going away. In Aberdeen, violence against teachers remains widespread, frequent and harmful, according to a report by teaching union, the EIS. It says more than a quarter of its members in the city were physically assaulted in the last year, with more than a third seeing violence on a daily basis. Aberdeen City Council had an action plan 2 years ago to tackle the issue and says there have been improvements but admits more work is still needed. 2 teachers agreed to speak to our reporter, Rebecca Curran, anonymously about their experiences.
It can be quite difficult to evacuate your class, and I think that's where a lot of the injuries happen to teachers, because they are trying to protect the other children, the vast majority of whom are all very well behaved and they are there to learn. You feel a duty of care to them, so you feel you have to intervene sometimes. You're told not to put yourself in a situation where you can actually be hurt, but that's really difficult to do if you're in a busy classroom and you see that another small child in your care is in the line of fire. It is your natural instinct as a caring adult to step in and protect those other children. Before that incident hurts one of them, you feel it's better you than them.
Have you been hurt physically?
I have been kicked, punched, slapped, nipped, spat at and been verbally abused. The language can be quite derogatory. Sometimes it's gender-based. It can be quite sexual language. These are quite young children from the beginning of primary.
In recent years, I feel like it's getting worse and not better. It feels like because the children feel they can get away with what they're doing, so they just keep pushing the boundaries. For me personally, I don't really feel safe in school anymore.
Can you describe some of the things that you've had to deal with as a secondary teacher in Aberdeen?
Swearing a lot, racial abuse, just abusive language. You can just be walking past and get abuse.
How often have you been racially abused?
Too many times to be able to say. It's just too many. Let's say every other day in my current school. Sometimes I have to ignore it because how many times am I going to report racial abuse? So if somebody says something, I can pretend I didn't hear it.
But in reality, how are you feeling when you go home at night?
It's really bad these days. I am really struggling with it now because I have done it for too many years. I was going to leave a few years ago, and with the help of my union and many colleagues, I have continued teaching, but I am thinking about it again now. I don't think I can teach much longer.
The experiences of 2 teachers there speaking to our reporter Rebecca Curran. Well, I've been speaking to the General Secretary of the EIS, Andrea Bradley, and asked her what teachers are being subjected to.
So a range of really troubling verbal and physical violence and aggression, both towards them and also towards other children. And this is ranging from verbal abusive behaviours to actual physical violence, and that would amount to assault in some cases, and teachers being unable to attend work because they have been so significantly injured in the process. And none of this is acceptable. We need our school environments to be safe, secure, healthy spaces for children and young people to learn. And we need, of course, because health and safety legislation demands it, that workplaces are safe for workers, including teachers, to be in. So, what we're seeing in Aberdeen schools at the moment is indicative of a picture that we're seeing actually across Scotland. This is not something that is confined to Aberdeen, and it's something that we really need government and employers, teacher trade unions, and all who've got an interest in Scottish education to work together to try to solve.
And Andrew, we're hearing a couple of examples from Aberdeen in the survey that's been done in Aberdeen, but how widespread a problem is this? Are there parts of Scotland where it's more problematic, more prevalent than others?
We surveyed our branches on this a couple of years ago, and our data suggests that this is Scotland-wide. It's not an issue that's confined to one part of the country or another. What we have found is that some local authority areas have perhaps been a bit more nimble in their responses to the work that's been done nationally, highlighting this particular problem. We have seen some improvements in reporting mechanisms, for example, and more incidents of this kind being reported and thought about and considered at local authority level. But we need to see much more consistency across the 32 local authorities in that regard. But what we urgently need is the resource, the additional teacher numbers, the additional support staff numbers in our schools to be able to help create the kinds of environments in our schools that are safer, more secure, where children and young people feel settled, and where they feel that they can thrive and they can learn along with their peers, and that takes staffing resource to be able to do that. And as I said, we don't have sufficient numbers of staff in our schools at the moment.
Is it more than just resources and staffing, Andrea? Because there'll be people that can understand, well, extra teachers in smaller classes would make a difference. If you've still got potentially pupils that are being abusive and violent towards teachers, how do you stop that element of their behaviour in that case?
So I think that you put measures in place that are preventative. You create the best conditions that you possibly can for learning and for socialising and, playing and all of the things that we want children and young people to be able to do. So as far as possible, you create the conditions that are going to be conducive to positive behaviour. You build relationships, pupils between each other, but also positive relationships, pupils to staff, including teachers and support staff. All of that takes time. It takes time to build those relational approaches. And we know that time for teachers at the moment is in very, very short supply.
Andrea Bradley from the EIS Union chatting to me earlier today. Now, if you have been feeling the pinch over the past 5 years, a report published today has outlined the scale of soaring energy costs in Scotland and the reasons behind the rise. The Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, which advises politicians and the media about energy and climate change issues, says the recent spike cost Scotland's economy £11 billion. That was between 2021 and 2024. Of this total, almost £6 billion was absorbed by Scottish households in excess energy costs. That equates to more than £2,200 per household over that 4-year period. The ECIU says the key driver is reliance on fossil fuels, which have spiralled in price since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Earlier, I asked the organisation's head of energy, Jess Ralston, to explain why we've been so slow to adapt.
It's still true that we're tied to these markets that we really have no control over. And some people say that we should therefore drill more in the North Sea, but that won't make any difference to the prices that we pay because there's simply not enough gas left to shift that dial and control those international markets. So unfortunately, the UK is a price taker rather than a price setter. And until we get away from using all of that gas and using petrol and diesel for our cars, we're going to be tied to those markets. So the UK government now, of course, trying to head towards clean power. But there's a bit more confusion with the Scottish government. What is their policy on the North Sea? What do they want to do about net zero? But really, that will provide energy security because it just shields households from those volatile markets.
Yeah, so you talk about obviously the reliance that we still have on oil and gas out with Scotland and the UK. Many people, particularly in Scotland, Jess, they might think we can see wind turbines and we have renewable projects that I'm reading about all the time. They might think, so why in Scotland are we not seeing the benefit of those when it comes to trying to bring down these energy prices?
Well, of course, it's a frustration for many Scots seeing all those wind farms going up and all that power being generated. But we've got a situation at the moment where the UK grid, electricity grid, is very old, it's very outdated. There's been a lack of investment for decades into it. And that's now really catching up with us because we've got Scottish wind farms being paid to turn off. We've got gas plants in England where there's a lot more demand being paid to turn on because we simply can't transport that power around. And that means that we need more things like pylons, more energy grid infrastructure that will help to reduce that wastefulness and make it more efficient. But renewables are helping to lower bills. We just don't see it as a line on our bill. But renewables are lowering the wholesale cost of electricity. And without it, we'd be in a much worse position. So although it doesn't feel like it is helping, but of course there's more to do. And that mainly sits with the UK government trying to sort out that old infrastructure and make it more modernised.
Energy costs, Jess, they disproportionately affect those on the lowest incomes. Do we need to think about a fairer pricing model? Should things change in that regard so that those on the lowest incomes are not struggling with their energy bills like we hear so often?
There's so many households living in fuel poverty, and low-income households tend to spend more on energy proportionately as a proportion of their income. So, of course, it's a huge problem when electricity prices and gas prices spike because energy demand is only elastic to a certain point. You know, people still need to have the lights on, they still need to cook the dinner, they still need to have a hot shower. So there's only so much you can do to reduce your energy use. And we've got Ofgem, the energy regulator, looking at changing the way standing charges work, which is a flat rate that everybody pays no matter how much energy you use. And people are saying, well, that's not very fair. It should be flexed on how much energy you actually use. We've got record levels of energy debt in the system, energy companies trying to work with fuel poverty charities to reduce that down. But there's questions as well about something called a social tariff, whether there should be a new tariff introduced so that low-income households can pay less. And people think that would be fairer. There's a lot of options on the table, but I think it's fair to say we haven't seen the government progress very much with any of them. And it feels a little bit like it might be at a stalemate position where energy prices are easing off a bit and it thinks, oh, can I just stand back now and not do as much? But we know from history that the gas prices will spike again because they're so geopolitical. I mean, we've got Trump, we've got Putin, we've got all these different people who are quite volatile themselves, and that causes volatility in the market. So getting our house in order now, I think, would be sensible for that future gas price spike.
Yeah, Jess Ralston, it's an issue that certainly affects all of us, doesn't it? Thank you very much for giving us your expert insight there. Jess Ralston, Head of Energy at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit. Thank you very much for your time today. Let's get a roundup of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland today then. And 2 people have been found dead following a single vehicle crash near Fort William. Emergency services were called to reports of a vehicle on fire in Corpach on Saturday morning. Council tax in Glasgow is set to rise between 5 and 6% after the SNP and Greens agreed a budget deal. Free school meals are expected to be extended to children in primary 7. And the Environment Watchdog says a diesel spillage into a Perthshire river appears to be clearing now. Residents of Cullen have been advised to avoid drinking tap water. Well, for more information on all of these stories and many more, you can just scan that QR code on your screen now. It'll take you straight to the BBC Scotland News app. There is more for you there, including a new online song portal marking the launch of World Gaelic Week. Well, at the BAFTA Awards in London last night, British star Robert Aramayo won Best Actor and Best Rising Star for I Swear, in which he portrays the Scottish Tourette syndrome campaigner John Davidson. Aramayo had been up against acting royalty including Leonardo DiCaprio and Timothée Chalamet. The actor thanked John and locals in the Borders.
I absolutely can't believe this. I can't believe that I'm looking at people like you and I'm in the same category of you. I want to thank Dottie, Murray, John and Chris and all the amazing people in Galashiels and the fantastic people that I met when I was researching this film. I honestly cannot believe that I have won this award.
The BBC has apologised for not editing out a racial slur from its coverage of the BAFTAs. John Davidson, whose life story inspired the film I Swear Lives with Tourette's Syndrome, shouted the N-word while two black actors, Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, presented the first award of the ceremony. BAFTA has since apologised to the two men. Earlier, our reporter Louise Hosey spoke to Lindsay Hay from the advocacy group Tourette's Scotland about last night's incident, but also the awareness of Tourette's that the film has brought.
So we're so proud, absolutely so proud. It's amazing for our community to bring this awareness and understanding on a worldwide scale. It's just phenomenal. We're so proud of John and obviously Robert, who played him in the movie.
What do you think it does in terms of raising awareness of the condition?
It's so important to raise awareness. There's such a misunderstanding about it. So to have this level of detail of John's life and what he's been through and the challenges he's faced, as do a lot of our community, it's just phenomenal. It's so good. Yeah.
We know that there are some high-profile people with Tourette's, like Lewis Capaldi, but how does the condition usually present, and what's been your experience with your son of this?
Yeah, of course. So my son is now 18, and so he's mainly motor tics, and he has some vocal tics, but not coprolalia. So that is the swearing side of it that is people tend to sort of say Tourette's is about, but there's so much more to it than that. Our young people and our adults are so creative and just wonderful people, and they shouldn't be defined just by the fact that they've got Tourette's syndrome.
And what challenges in your experience does this present for people with Tourette's? What sort of feelings do they have? How does it affect them?
People feel a lot of shame sometimes, or embarrassment, but it's all involuntary. They can't help it. It's not, they're not meaning what they're saying. It doesn't define them as a person. In our house, it's thought of as a superpower, which is fantastic, and that's how it's a positive. I think a lot of it's to do with education and the people understanding that the people with Tourette's don't need to change. It's the people around them that need to change to help them in their life.
How old was your son when he first began displaying symptoms of Tourette's, and when was he diagnosed?
So he started to show signs of motor tics when he was around 3 years old. It took quite a long time to process and go through the steps, but it was about primary 3, primary 4 that he got diagnosed. He would have been about 8 or 9. And we've just treated it a real positive. We've done a lot to educate people around us, with support from Tourette's Scotland, going into schools to help educate staff. And it's really just about increasing everyone's knowledge to be able to support him to fulfil his life, really.
Do you feel that over the years there have been some misconceptions and maybe misunderstandings about Tourette's?
100%, and I think John Davidson is one of the biggest advocates out there to promote what it is like to have Tourette's and not just the negatives about it. But it's so important that these people raise this awareness through speaking and educating people and attending events to actually let people know what life is like with Tourette's.
There was some controversy last night after John Davidson, whose life story inspired the film, shouted the N-word as Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo presented a prize. What's your response to that?
My response is it's part of his condition. It's a neurological condition that can't be helped. If somebody was, another disability that was a physical disability, we wouldn't be questioning this at all. So it's exactly the same for somebody that's got this condition. It's involuntary, he can't help it. People think that he must know what he's saying. He can't help it. It's a part of his brain, it's firing that causes him to do this. He's got no awareness of what he said until he said it. Think how he is feeling today, with all this going on, and how a lot of our Tourette's community will be feeling today. We just need to educate everyone and make everyone aware that this is not them doing it intentionally. They can't help what they're doing, it's involuntary.
That was Lindsay Hay speaking to Louise Hosey there today. Well, still to come, we have the weather with Christopher, as milder air brings us a little bit of hope. I think that spring might not be too far away. But first, it is sport time with Jane. And Jane, this title twist just keeps on going, doesn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant, I have to say. Yeah, it's the best title race in years, and it shows no signs of getting any less exciting. Another weekend of high drama, last-minute goals, controversial moments, and right now it's still advantage Hearts. Well, they kept up the momentum at the top with a 1-0 win over Falkirk at Tynecastle on Saturday. New signing Islam Chesnikov with his first goal for the club, and if Derek McInnes was smiling after that, he would have been delighted after Sunday's matches. Second place Rangers rescued a point against bottom side Livingston. Mikey Moore with a late equaliser. Then third place Celtic crashed to defeat at Easter Road. Kai Andrews getting the winner for Hibs after Austin Trusty was red carded. So with just 10 games to go, who is coming out on top? Well, Kennedy Nitsan asked Lee Miller, Chris Boyd and Stilian Petrov what they think. No prizes for guessing who they're backing.
Who's going to win the league?
Hearts. I still think Rangers will get over the line.
I'll say Celtic.
Derek McInnes is such a good season this season. Yes, they've got quite a few injuries, but every time they have the injuries, they seem to have players that will come in and they've got a point to prove. And I just think they'll be strong enough, and I don't think Rangers and Celtic will string a run of wins together to get close enough to them, to be honest.
What is it about Rangers that you like at the moment? Is it that they're scoring goals? Is it momentum? Is it the manager? What makes you think that Rangers can do it?
I think the manager has made a huge difference, and the table shows you that since he's came in. There's no doubt that Rangers were all over the place at the start of the season. The chairman deserves enormous credit for realising that that was an issue, and Rangers were able to go and change it and turn their season around. Danny Rowe deserves enormous credit for what he does, but it will all be forgotten about if Rangers don't land silverware. There is genuine belief with Rangers that they can deliver this title, but they're going to have to correct their away form because it's not been good enough.
I think they've got the manager, they've got the character of Martin O'Neill, they've still got good players that don't perform very well at the moment. It seems like the club is divided, and that affects the performances of the players. You can see that.
They win 1-0 at home to Falkirk, where we top hook finish, and keep solid at the back, and I just think they'll have that resilience and strength, and they've still got players to come back from injury as well.
That's my only concern with Rangers, the lack of a number 9 that can sniff out those opportunities when the game might be tight. But I feel as if Rangers, the new players have made a difference, and they'll have enough between now and the end of the season.
And the games away to Rangers in the league, away to Aberdeen in the league, away to Rangers in the Cup, that's going to define Celtic's season now, isn't it?
It will be. But you know what? Celtic's been in this situation before. Maybe not in the last couple of years. Like I said, that league's been decided way earlier in the previous years, but not this year. And they have to show that they can be champions again. And this is exciting times, challenging times, but also exciting as well. And like I said, Celtic do have the capability of winning the league. They just have to win every single game or lose less.
To athletics now, and Megan Keith has broken Ailish McColgan's European record in the 10 kilometres. The 23-year-old finished 4th in the Spanish road race in Castellón in 30 minutes, 7 seconds. Well, I caught up with her earlier while she was flying home, and I asked her if she was expecting to run such a fast time.
No, it was completely unexpected, to be honest. I knew I had good fitness, but I'm in the middle of a training block, so this was just kind of a good tester to see where my form was at, but I was not expecting to be breaking any records, so it's a welcome shock.
So tell us how you were feeling on the day when you turned up to the race, and what you kind of put yourself through to try and kind of produce the run that you did.
I was a bit apprehensive because there was a lot of fast people in the race, but I knew it was a very good course that always historically has produced fast times and records. And I had a pacer with me, so we had discussed what sort of time I wanted to run, and I wanted to run under 31 minutes. So I did achieve that. I went quite a long way under it, which was not expected. But I was really happy to put out a good performance and check that box on my way to my next races.
And what kind of reaction have you had from the people around you, your coaches, fellow runners, and of course family?
Everyone's very excited. Yeah, my coach says he saw it coming. And my phone's been going a bit crazy in the last 24 hours with lots of congratulations messages and that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think my family quite believe it. They think that time is absolutely crazy, as do I. So my coach is the only one who's not super surprised.
And obviously, one of your fellow Scots and British runners, Eilish McColgan, was also in the field. I know you two are quite close, aren't you? What was she saying to you afterwards?
She was happy for me. It was her record I took. Yeah. So she was also trying to lower it the best she could. So I think I obviously look up to her. I think she's incredible, and I don't see myself as being near her level yet. But hopefully we can be pushing each other on.
And just finally, Megan, obviously the Commonwealth Games will be a big one for you in the summer. But between now and then, what happens? Is there more training? Obviously, there will be more training. Is there more events that you'll take part in to try and get up to that kind of level for the Commie Games?
There'll be, as you say, a lot more training. I might go on a camp and I'll be doing different races to sharpen different bits of my toolkit to hopefully stand in the best possible position to be on the track in Glasgow, giving my best.
Oh, that was brilliant stuff from Megan Keith there. Well, there's plenty more on the sports news on the BBC Sports Scotland website, including more on that Premiership title race. It really is getting exciting. And more on rugby as well after back-to-back wins for Scotland in the Six Nations. Isn't it just fantastic, Jane? Because we did not see that coming after the start in Italy. No, absolutely not. Absolutely back to their best against England. A little bit kind of rusty against Wales, but they got there, and that's all that matters. It certainly is, Jane. Thank you very much, as always. And let's just stick with sport for a moment, as Edinburgh has become the latest part of Scotland to confirm that pubs will be allowed to stay open into the wee hours during this summer's World Cup. The city's licensing board has granted an extension lasting until 30 minutes after the final whistle for all matches during the tournament, which is being held in the USA, Canada and Mexico. Scotland's first match of the competition is against Haiti on the 14th of June with a kick-off of 2 o'clock in the morning. Time to see how the weather is looking, and Chris is here. Some blue skies, the sunshine. Can we get hopeful of spring yet?
It feels tantalisingly close, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of cloud around this week, yes. Some sunshine today, though. Lovely pictures, as ever, from our weather watchers. Thanks for those. Cloudier conditions through South Lanarkshire from one of our weather watchers there, Faffy. And cloudy skies over Kelvin Grove as well. And there's a lot more cloud to come tomorrow as well. Let me show you what's happening. This is the pressure sequence coming up through the next few days. We've got low pressure systems arriving off the Atlantic, bringing weather fronts and rain, but it will be fairly mild throughout, and by the end of the week we could see a deeper area of low pressure, but that's one to watch. This is the picture first thing tomorrow. It's a cloudy start to the day with some mist and murk around, a few spots of rain or drizzle. And it's a mild start, 7 to 9 Celsius for many towns and cities. A little bit breezy around the west coast through the Minches and across the Northern Isles as well. And it will be a cloudy and damp day through Orkney and Shetland, so not quite the bright skies that we saw here today. Through the course of Tuesday, it remains cloudy for many, and we've got the trailing cold front bringing some outbreaks of rain across the Highlands and Islands and in towards the far north as well, but temperatures 10 to 12 Celsius. This is further into the week now, Wednesday, and you can see we've got a system bringing outbreaks of rain chiefly to the west, but they will tend to migrate eastwards through the day, so that means basically Wednesday cloudy with rain at times. Breezy from the southwest, and temperatures once again on the mild side, reaching around 12 degrees, but with it cloud and indeed rain. And then, as we go further in the week, this is Thursday, you can see a southwesterly bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain. Best chance of brighter weather likely in the east and northeast. Just a touch cooler, 10, 11 Celsius, but still relatively mild, actually. And then the extended outlook, you can see a deeper area of low pressure approaching through the end of the week, bringing a spell of wind and rain. Something colder for a short time, but we're back to the milder weather later on. So a cooler feel on Friday with northwesterly winds and some potentially wintry showers over higher ground. But you see, as we head through back towards Saturday, we've got winds now coming back in from the south, so outbreaks of rain and a return to something milder. So temperatures across the board up to around 10 degrees for most. This is the outlook. You can see it's a fairly cloudy and at times wet picture, but it should be mild. That's the forecast for now.
So we don't need to scrape the cars anymore, but we do need the wipers.
And a brolly.
And yes, absolutely. Chris, thank you as ever, and thanks to you for joining us. That is all from the news at 17. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye for now.